Hello, my name is Kevin Friel, and I'm the IT Operations Program Lead for Redox, a healthcare company.
And I'm Lisa Davies. I'm a Senior Security Engineer at Redox.
And today we'll be talking about securing a modern distributed Mac workforce with Jamf and the Jamf add-on for Splunk, or how to avoid installing additional security agents. So today we'll be discussing the challenges of a distributed workforce, how we built a remote-first IT department, how security is dealing with the challenges of securing and keeping the workforce in compliance, and how we get to use all that through Splunk. So to start, the age-old question, what's IT's role in a traditional versus distributed workforce? Well, the role of managing devices and supporting end users is basically the same, but how we go about doing it has to be quite different. Instead of having one central location or a number of offices with dedicated IT staff, we literally have over 150 offices that share the same IT staff. This, of course, means that we have to come up with a change to the model a little bit. There's no desk to walk up to with a problem. There's no one to hand out Macs on day one, but luckily, management and security tools are location agnostic. We're an Apple shop, meaning we use Macs for our workforce, so we can lean on Apple best practices. Apple has a very specific and supported process for deploying hardware, provisioning hardware, securing endpoints, managing those endpoints, and of course, patching them regularly. But this is where we start to have some challenges. Break fix, troubleshooting, answering those random or walk-up type of questions. In a traditional sense, a lot of IT management and even some security teams would think the answer is to install a ton of agents. After all, those Macs are outside the walls, so to speak. How are we going to be able to secure and manage all of them, even with all the tools that Apple gives us? But luckily, we've thought of a few other ways. So we continue to leverage Apple best practices and start to add some of our own. It's time to leverage some tools, but maybe not tools that are always considered part of the IT toolkit. So we started to think about, we have to change some of what is a given in IT. But let's start with the basics first. When I say truly embrace zero touch, here's what I mean. Other than a small spare pool used as loaners for repairs, we do not maintain any new stock. We order a new Mac for each new employee, one for one. When you have an office, it's usually more efficient to have some Macs on hand and distribute as needed, but not us. We direct ship from Apple to employee. So that means that IT will never touch that Mac. Plus, with Apple making changes to how MDM works, we really shouldn't be touching those Macs before they're in employees' hands. And this is all thanks to Apple's DEP program, where at purchase, each Mac is registered to the company's MDM server. Direct shipped from Apple to employee also means we can control the chain of custody, Apple to FedEx to employee. The seal of the Mac only being cracked when that employee gets the box. DP is great, but what if that Mac gets lost or in someone else's hands? Sure, DP is great to make sure that it's set up properly, but only for those authenticated, authorized users. So we have Okta authentication prior to enrollment, meaning only the authorized employee can enroll and log in that computer. As I alluded to earlier, this is all thanks to Apple's alphabet soup of programs made available to schools and enterprise, DEP, MDM, VPP. We can get lost in all the letters, but the end result is a fairly efficient and secure process that allows our IT to reach into that Mac virtually and set it up. And to the end user, it just works. So that's great. We're all set up and done, right? So this is where we have to do a little more planning and things change a little bit. This is the whole traditional versus distributed IT. So on step 2, this is where it starts to get fun. We get to totally rethink how we get to do IT. We need to do this to ensure that we can give the same or even better experience for our users, no matter where they are literally in the world. So we fully embrace the lack of a central IT desk. #remote. We anticipate. We make asking for help as easy as walking up to the IT desk. And of course, self-service, self-service, self-service. Now, a minute ago, I said this is where things get fun. Not figuring out what we have to do, but actually figuring out how we can do that without all the traditional IT infrastructure associated with an in-office IT. So how do we figure that out? Well, it's all about the tools, and maybe not the tools that you'd think. 2 to 3 of those tools are kind of obvious on the IT side. Taking advantage of Apple's processes and, of course, management tools like MDM, which in our case is, of course, Jamf. And even reporting is usually a part of IT, but IT leveraging security tools. IT is usually just responsible for deploying and then, of course, trying to fix unruly security agents, not actually taking advantage of that information they collect. See, that's why the reporting toolkit is sort of new to this scenario. Okay, so what tools are we talking about specifically? So thanks to Apple, we have DEP, MDM, VPP primarily. We have the IT operations team to thank for setting it up and maintaining a device management system, again, in our case, Jamf. And since our security team is already doing their jobs well, thanks, Lisa, we can take advantage of their security and reporting tools. In traditional IT, each of these 4 tool sets could be completely separate or lightly integrated. But in our distributed IT model, we're taking advantage of our device management tools and tying it into the other tool sets. And IT gets to look good doing it. So Jamf gives us a good mix of MDM and agent management, at least while Apple is still allowing the agents. So we get to use Jamf as it's designed, but we also get to tie it into a larger picture. Jamf has even started to promote itself in this way with Jamf and Marketing. And basically choose the best tool for the job, and Jamf can probably tie into it. I've been using Jamf for almost 10 years, and as the product has improved, it's proved itself. It does its job and plays well with others. And for a distributed IT model, that's crucial. There's no single tool that can do it all. There is no single pane of glass, as IT leadership likes to hope for. However, it's possible to get everything we need through a curated list of tools. And funny enough, a lot of those tools that can help us are security tools. They each get to do their designated jobs, but when tied together with Splunk, things start to get interesting. We're looking into ways that we can use all that collected information, including a lot of logging that the Mac already collects locally, to help us troubleshoot and remotely assist and fix Mac issues. Of course, Jamf collects a lot of data about all the Macs enrolled. We have very reliable discovery-based data. We can verify enforcement policies. We're easily able to natively track multiple data points. Some of that data may be collected by other tools, but a lot is not. And of course, we get the strengths of device management. So now we have a full set of tools, each doing what they are best at, but also, since they all collect a lot of data, we can start to merge and collate that data to get our meaningful device data. But that's not the end of the discussion, particularly with a distributed workforce. We also have to ensure that our users experience both with using their Macs, but also if something goes wrong or if they have any questions. Being distributed, we have to worry about our users being able to easily communicate with IT. For us, that's Slack and Zoom. It may vary on your own company. You can have the best plans and the best team, but if your users can't easily communicate with IT, then you fail. And being distributed adds to those challenges. So it sounds kind of funny, but #remote, that's the focus. Anticipate by using data from all the tools at our disposal. Leverage communication tools to make asking for help as easy as walking up to the IT person's desk. And this is a constant evolution and may depend on your company's culture, but it's something that you have to stress. And most importantly, empower your users with self-service. Next level IT is having a single source of truth collated from many sources. So this is really just tying it all together. It sounds like I keep repeating myself, but the vision is to use the best-in-class tools for their intended purpose. But also by leveraging a tool like Splunk, collect and collate all that data and look for meaningful information. No tool will give the complete picture of an endpoint, but add them all together and we get something useful. So at this point, you're maybe expecting some of those amazing dashboards and insights, but we're not there yet. Lisa's going to talk about a few, but our next level IT stuff, we're not quite there. We have the architecture in place, so to speak, to figure this out, but we're still in the process of seeing how it all plays together. Consider this our discovery phase. We figured out what we can collect. Now we're looking at how to best use that to our advantage, particularly in the case of a distributed workspace where IT does not have physical access to the endpoints. Some of what we think the direction we're moving into will need to focus on a few things. So discovering common issues with aggregated data. Now, we're just starting to investigate how to leverage this data, but we envision a time when, after assisting one user, we could scan the logs and find other Macs that are either having a similar issue or maybe moving in that direction. Can you imagine the ability to predict issues or even fix them before users even notice? We have to take advantage of data collection for troubleshooting. So we can get a head start on what an issue may be just by reading the ticket and pulling up some logs. I don't know if you're like me, but in my help desk days, as soon as I'd get a ticket, I'd open up Jamf, get some information about the computer. Well, the next step would be, okay, let's pull a couple logs that might be related to the problem in the ticket. To do that, we need to figure out the best way to handle Mac local logs. And this is really a big part of the equation and is going to require a lot of work. I think there's a big future in tools that can crawl large data sets and look for trending issues. And we can start that search after just one reported ticket. After all, how many users simply live with an issue for much longer than they should due to not having time for IT or fearing the eventual downtime that the fix may take? Then we need to create meaningful self-service tools. You know, the focus is always on self-service, and it sounds really cliched, but empowering our users, that's the end goal. We need to remember that in everything that we do. So this is the future, next level IT that I've mentioned, and we're well on our way. And all of this without adding a ton of new agents to the Mac. Instead, we get to completely leverage all the data each carefully selected agent collects already. So now I'm going to hand it over to Lisa so that she can go over how we're using Splunk to actually make all this work. Lisa?
Thank you, Kevin. Recently, I made a career pivot from spending most of my day in front of a Jamf console to joining the security team. After joining the security team, I came with an appreciation of the challenges that I used to have in my previous role. Those challenges of providing a solid user experience whilst meeting all the requirements of the organization. In my new role, I have an appreciation for new challenges, which are related to compliance and security reporting and remediation of any security issues. And that comes with a really delicate balance that we all are experienced with, having our users have a positive time on their devices, yet still adhering to security and performance of the device. The security teams truly do not want to overload the endpoints with additional agents, but we do need data for insights and reporting. The tool sets that are marketed towards security teams often have overlapping features with tools such as Jamf. And it's not that we want to deploy an additional agent, it's that we need that visibility to the data to be able to do our own jobs. So now that I'm on the security team, much of that data I need is actually already present in Jamf. So instead of installing additional security tools to gather that data, we found that we were able to leverage the Jamf Pro add-on with Splunk to get that data into Splunk and allow security to use their own tool to do their own reports. I'm going to walk you through how to get that data from Jamf Pro to Splunk. We'll do a couple of save searches to get it there. We'll do queries in Splunk, and we'll even build a dashboard. So it's not as hard as it looks. I know Splunk, if you've ever used it, can look really intimidating the first time you log in. Admittedly, I was. All you see is that search bar. What do I do from here? So let's start by getting our data there, and then we'll get beyond that search bar. First of all, we're going to need to create a Splunk service account within our Jamf environment. Getting the data over to Splunk is as simple as creating an advanced save search. Then on the Splunk side, we're going to need to install the Splunk Jamf add-on. We'll create an index to keep our Jamf data organized, and then we'll configure the inputs from Jamf. So when we're creating that service account, we're going to use the security principle of least privilege. We're going to give that service account read-only permissions, and we're going to give it read advanced searches. So we've all been to the Jamf Pro users and groups section. From there, we're going to create a new account. After we've done that, we're going to create a save search. With the save search, that is literally the data that we're sending across to Splunk. We've all seen that screen before: computers, advanced computer searches, new, and be sure to check the save search. I'm going to call it, for these purposes, Splunk ingest. That way it's really obvious what the purpose of this save search is, and nobody's going to accidentally delete or modify it. Now we need to set the criteria for this search. This is a really important step to think about. Do we want to send every single computer in Jamf over to the security team, or just the ones they need to know about? How many times have you been asked to follow up on a device that's actually already been removed from the fleet or decommissioned? For our purposes, sending over managed devices makes sense. This way, we're not sending decommissioned devices that might still be present in Jamf for asset reasons. This allows you to choose which devices the security teams see. Now I'm going to choose the fields that are actually sent over to Splunk. The security team probably wants to know about encryption, serial numbers, operating system versions, and you probably also have a number of custom extension attributes. Other data that's likely of interest is going to be application versions and some of the security settings such as the SIP and the firewall status. By navigating through these display fields, you can choose what data your security team receives. So we've just done the Jamf side. So far, pretty easy. Hope you're still with me. Now we need to go over to the Splunk side. The first thing we're going to need is the Jamf Pro add-on for Splunk. Hopefully that's available here on Splunk Base. Think of it a little bit like Jamf Nation, but for Splunk. You can see at the moment there's been about 515 installs. Hopefully after today there'll be a few more. And much thanks goes to the Jamf team for developing this add-on. Now we need to install it. Is your environment Splunk Cloud or Splunk Enterprise? Depending on what you have, the installation process is going to be a little bit different. If you have Splunk Enterprise, you can install it directly from Splunk Base. If you have Cloud, you're going to need to put in a Splunk ticket for support to do this for you. And you can give them that link that I've got here below to let them know what add-on needs to be installed. Once we've got the add-on, we're going to need to create an index. An index is a way to keep your data organized within Splunk. So I've created an index called Jamf, and we're going to send all of our Jamf data to the Jamf index. This is going to make our life a little bit easier later on. So to do that within Splunk, settings, indexes, new index. So far, pretty easy. Let's do a quick check how far we've come. We've created our Splunk service account in Jamf. We've created our advanced save search. We've installed the Splunk add-on, and we've created an index. One step left. We need to configure the inputs. To configure the inputs, we're going to log back into Splunk if we're not already there. Settings, data inputs, Jamf. We're going to create a new input. I've called it Jamf. And then we need to provide the URL of our Jamf environment. Our search name is our save search, and I've selected computers there, so that's Splunk ingest. The username of our Splunk service account from Jamf, and the account password. The interval is worth thinking about. I'm not sure how frequently you collect inventory. Let's say, for example, you collect inventory once a day. At first thought, you might think, I want to get this data straight away. Let's run this every few minutes. But the data is not really going to change unless there's been an updated inventory collected in Jamf. So maybe it makes sense to collect 4 or 5 times a day. So in this, I think the 21600 is about every 6 hours, if I'm correct. And that way, we're not going to be sending data all the time, but it's frequently enough that we'll be aware fairly quickly of any status changes to the devices. The source type is important. For this example, I'm going to use the Jamf XML source type. So let's do another quick check where we're at. We've done our service account, advanced save search, the add-on, index. We've done our inputs. So at this point, if everything's set up correctly, we should be ready to start looking at some of the data. The first thing we're going to do is come to that scary looking search bar when you first log into Splunk. Let's make sure that this is working. So our very first search is going to be index equals Jamf. And if this is working, you're going to automatically see some results come up. What you'll also see in this screenshot I have on the right is just a few of the fields that are available. There's actually more than 100 fields available, at least in what I see. And you can see here there's a lot of data that's already of a lot of use for a security team or even for an IT team. You can see in this exact example, we've got gatekeeper, we've got firewall status, whether or not it's managed. All of this data is going to be really helpful to be able to build reports. So let's go through a couple of examples what we can do. In Kevin's slides, we saw a really nice map of where our devices are located. I'm going to show you how to build that map. We'll create an OS pie chart, a dashboard, and then I've got a couple more things to show you too. To create our cluster map, we're going to start with our index equals Jamf. Now, if we're collecting data multiple times a day, we're going to get duplicate records. So we want to make sure that we only get the last record of a last event from each computer. So we're going to dedupe it based on the computer serial number, because hopefully that's a unique identifier in your fleet. If it's not, you've got some other issues which I can't help you with today, but there's a lot of people you can talk to at the conference who can give you some suggestions. Then we're going to look at the computer IP address and pipe it through geostats. That's then going to generate our map. You should see something similar to this. All our devices are hopefully located in the US, but if they were elsewhere, I could zoom out this map and I'd be able to see where in the world our devices are located. The next example I'm going to show you is an OS pie chart. Being in security, patching is really important to us because that's how all of our updates are going to come through, and we have compliance requirements that patching is done in a timely manner. So again, we're going to use our index equals Jamf. We're going to dedupe so we have the most recent report from each computer. And then we're going to use the stats command. We're going to count by computer operating system version. Once we've done that, we can use the visualization tab to select a pie chart. So this pie chart was taken a bit of time ago. Hopefully you don't have any 10.15.3 still in your fleet, but I'd want to take a look at that. Is this person on holiday? Maybe they're on an extended leave. Maybe there's something wrong with that device, or we don't have a current record for it. So all reasons why we should look into this. There's a lot on 10.15.6, which is great, and there's a few that are probably going to patch in the next couple of days. But 10.15.3 is one I probably want to dig into, as would you in your fleet. So now that we've seen a couple of visualizations we can do, we can create our first dashboard. If you've walked around the office when it was safe to do so, you've probably seen the TVs with dashboards and displays up around. So this is how we can make one for ourselves. We're going to use our cluster map and we're going to use our pie chart. It really is as simple as just choosing Save As. First of all, we're going to save as a dashboard panel, and we're going to have to create that first dashboard, my first dashboard, and we'll give it a panel title of Mac locations and hit Save. When we get over to the pie chart, the same thing, except we're going to choose the existing dashboard that we just created. Our panel title is going to be OS pie chart, and once again, we'll hit Save. It will then really helpfully ask us if we'd like to view the dashboard. Why, yes, please take me there. And hopefully this is what you'll see on your screen. You can then edit it to adjust the formatting or to change how it looks, or maybe even add a time picker. Lots of things you can do. You can also add additional panels to have more data on your dashboard. I've got a sample dashboard here that might be useful, so I can see at a glance the state of some of the metrics of the fleet that I care about. I can see if anybody has turned off SIP, if they're missing their endpoint security software, if they haven't patched, or if they've gone dark. When a computer goes dark and it's not checking in anymore, that's a cause of concern. Is the person on holiday? Are they on extended leave? Is there something wrong with the agent? Has it been decommissioned? These are all things I want to know, because when a computer is not checking in, it's probably not going to be compliant for security. So as you can see here, I've got 3 computers that aren't checking in frequently. So most probably I'll reach out to Kevin and find out that these ones have been returned and that I can disregard these, and soon they'll be dropping off our inventory. Or maybe one of these people is on extended leave. But either way, I want to make sure all of our fleet is active. You can add additional panels here based on any of the criteria that you're able to send from Jamf through to Splunk if you have additional criteria that your organization cares about. I'm going to show you a Dropbox example now. As you saw from Kevin's earlier slides, we're also collecting data from Command Reporter. In this example, I can see computers that have sent data with Dropbox, or maybe it's not Dropbox that you're interested in, maybe it's some other service. So by using this search, index equals Command Reporter, because I split that data out from the Jamf data, I can then search for the process Dropbox, outbound network connections, and then I can build a table of host, which is computer name in this example, and user. And that will let me know the users in a specific period of time that have been using Dropbox. That's going to give me a result like this. To protect the innocent, I've taken out the names of the computers and the usernames, but I now have a list over a 24-hour period of the computers and users of those computers that have been active on Dropbox. Another place that we can look to get examples on how to use the Splunk data and build out interesting dashboards is our very own Jamf Nation. There's a really good thread that started there a couple of months back from Jamf_Sam. And if you find that thread on Jamf Nation and scroll through, there's a number of people who have shared examples of their dashboards. So let's keep this conversation going, share what you've done, and we'll continue to build our dashboards out. Thank you so much, everyone who's taken time out from their day to attend our session. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it, good or bad. It helps us make it better next time. Thank you.